Witness the colossal boxing showdown nobody expected, live on Netflix. International superstar Jake Paul, the sport's most watched fighter, takes on Britain's two-time unified heavyweight world champion and Olympic gold medalist, Anthony A.J. Joshua, in the most dangerous and defining matchup of their careers. This is Judgment Day. Watch Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, Friday, December 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on Netflix.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
Before this episode aired, Cris Reisert accepted a new position as the offensive coordinator at the University of Toledo. At the time of this conversation, Cris was serving as the head coach at Gardner-Webb, where Kaizen had already become a foundational part of how his program operated on a daily basis. In this episode, Cris joins the discussion not to talk scheme or outcomes, but to explain how Kaizen functions as a living system inside a football program, from culture and accountability to evaluation, standards, and player ownership. His experience applying Kaizen across multiple programs provides a practical example of how continuous improvement moves beyond slogans and into daily behaviors, shared standards, and disciplined processes. This conversation builds directly on the Kaizen framework introduced in a previous episode, showing how a coach can create alignment, reduce fear of failure, and turn problems into opportunities for growth by improving the system, not blaming the people inside it.
I think guys will start to understand as you unpack it in your head too, of how it can add value just from the mindset of guys that all said and done, they're going to fail a bunch. I fail every day. And so if it sets you back and you don't learn from it, then it's a waste. And so use it for growth, use it for fuel, allow it to chase your success and be the best version of you.
We continue our discussion on Kaizen, and as I said, we would have a coach on to talk about how this works in his program. Excited to have Cris Reisert back. Cris joined us for the first time when he was at Ohio Dominican as the offensive coordinator. It's been exciting to see his rise through the ranks. He coached at Tiffin University, where my son plays baseball, so I was able to see Cris in some practices while I was out watching fall baseball as well, or spring baseball. And we've been excited to see Chris's rise, now the head coach at Gardner-Webb, and just doing an outstanding job.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Cris, thanks for joining us again. It's great to see you.
It's awesome to be back. Man, that's crazy. 2017 was when we first kind of started the journey. So pretty cool to think back. That was an awesome time. And no, it's great to be back on. Thanks for all the great work you're doing to move football forward, and excited to talk about Kaizen.
Absolutely. So I shared my story of Kaizen, which was I started learning when I was 18 years old at a manufacturing company on the east side of Cleveland. Started there out of high school, just working there in the summers, and then internshiped and worked there all through college on my breaks, and then worked there full-time after college as I was coaching, then made a transition into teaching and coaching. So we really dug into what that meant and saw that carryover, saw how that worked for football as well. But would love to hear your journey with it, where you became aware of it and how it became a part of what you do.
You know, it's been a big piece of really my entire career as a head coach. Flashback to Tiffin University, 2019. We had put together our staff, and as a head coach, typically when you first get the job, you got about 8,000 pages of philosophy and culture and all these things that, you believe in or you think you believe in. And then you start trying to whittle stuff down, right? And so I remember we had a staff meeting and we were talking about improvement, talking about daily excellence. How do we really embrace the process and chase our success rather than worry about failure? one of our coaches, actually, our defense coordinator at the time, Bert Bathian, who's now the head coach at Muller High School, mentioned the word Kaizen. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was like his second or third grade baseball coach that had brought it, and obviously continuous improvement. And we started chewing on it. I'm like, man, that's amazing. It sums up what I want to be, what I want our program to be. I'm a big believer in a growth mindset. I think Kaizen, having the mindset of just continuous improvement every single day, just straining to do the process better than you did the day before, and allowing that to lend to better outcomes or better results. And ever since that, it's been a core value for us at Tiffin, for us at Gardner-Webb. We really lean into it in a big way and use it in so many parts of our program.
Yeah, I would love to dig into that a little bit and see the practical side of this of how is it more than just a word on a page for you? How do you make it part of your culture? How does this show up for guys right now in the off season as you start to get back into the weight room? You guys out on the road recruiting, improving the team that way. And then we could get into the specifics of it, of what this looks like as we get into X's and O's and stuff like that. But as that, you said, it's part of our philosophy, it's part of our culture. How does it show up? How do you make it practical as not only this is what we believe, but this is how we do it?
Yeah. In my mind, I'll start kind of why I love it and in the big picture of how we use it. So I think nowadays in college football, I think in kids that are college age, I think that fear of failure is a real thing. I think at times the guys aren't willing to kind of put themselves out there and really chase their success or chase the best version of themselves, because there's always that little bit of fear of like, all right, am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? There's a big difference when you play to win in football versus when you play not to lose or play not to screw it up. That's a different mindset, right? It's a freeing mindset when you're playing to win. And so Kaizen for us is really kind of the beginning of the story that I want our guys to understand, where we're going to play to win every single thing that we do. And so we're going to chase victory and not worry about not being good enough or maybe falling short here or falling short there. And I want guys to do that in life, not to just be a football thing. If you want something in life, go get it. So we use Kaizen as an idea of, all right, here's the deal. You're going to chase your success, and success is not right, just one note all the way up. Success is usually ups and downs and failures, and you learn from that, from those setbacks. And so we look at it where we're going to chase it, and then we're going to Kaizen. And so the way we look at it is from a Kaizen perspective is there's failures every single day. And so as we face failures, whether it's practice in a game, the number one thing you have to do is own it. You got to own it. You've got to tear it apart, dissect it, and then dig into why we failed. And I think that's such a good visual if you think about, right, a machinery type deal, right? A Toyota or whatever it may be. And when it breaks down, they're going to stop, hold a Kaizen, and they're going to tear the whole thing down, right? And when they build it back up, they're not going to build it the same way. They're going to make it better because of the failure. And to us, that's what Kaizen is. We want to chase success. If we didn't get there, figure out why, tear the whole thing down, right? Really look at how do we take ownership as an individual, but also as a team. And then how do we collectively improve because of the failure? Don't see it as a setback, see it as an opportunity for growth. And so that's always been the way that we've approached it. I think we're in a very results-oriented business, and being able to stay, I think, in attack mode of being our best and Kaizening to get to that point every single day has been really, really good for our program.
Now, you mentioned this is something you got in 2019, you're at Tiffin, you start implementing it there. What are some of those first instances when you said, okay, this is really important to us, this is how we're going to do it, that you could think of like applying that process of digging into it, that you saw like, this is how it works?
Yeah, I'll tell you kind of what we do here. I think the biggest part of Kaizen is you have to have metrics. You have to have evaluation, right? And so if you say, oh, I want to keep getting better, but you don't ever evaluate it, or you don't ever have objective data to dictate, am I getting better or am I not? I think it makes it really, really tough. And so one of the things we do every off season is we use the acronym EDGE, right? Effort, discipline, grit, and energy. And so every single guy in our building gets an EDGE grade every single day. So starting January 12th, right, first day of workouts, right, you're going to get an EDGE grade. So you're going to get an energy grade, a discipline grade, a grit grade, and an effort grade. And at 8:30 every night, that gets through a Teamworks app, right, gets sent out to the entire team. And everyone knows exactly where they stacked up on that day. And there's notes as to why you maybe were X, Y, or Z from a grade perspective. But that's the one metric that we use every offseason. And so it's a way for us as coaches and for our players to see, all right, hey, I wanted to be a 4 in effort yesterday. I was at 2. Here's the note for me to get to where I need to be a 4. I've got to go do that in Kaizen and make sure I get that done tomorrow. And so what we do is we constantly give our guys data and feedback throughout the offseason. When it comes from a football perspective, like I'll give you an idea from an offensive perspective. Offensively, you're going to track so much data throughout fall camp, throughout spring ball, right? In an effort to see if we've Kaizened or if we need to find ways that maybe get better faster. Like just a small thing. We look at efficiency every day in team, right? We want to be a 50% efficient football team, right? What is that? 4 yards on first and second down, and in a money down, third or fourth down, you get the first down. So we want to be 50% or higher in all team periods, right, throughout camp. We want our drops, our sacks, our turnovers, and our penalties divided by the total number of plays to be under 12%. We want to be over 15% explosive or X plays. And so any runs over 10 or passes over 15, right, we're going to call that an X play, and we want to be at 15% over the course of a team period. And we're also going to track, right, all the sacks that we allow. And the penalties that we have. And so it's a way for us to constantly have objective data. And we use that data to really be able to chart where we're at. And if there's a metric that we're consistently falling below as a staff, now we've really got to own that and say why, right? What do we need to do in our process, right? In our preparation, our teaching, the understanding, right? Maybe schematically, we need to make an adjustment. It gives us an ability to really reflect and own it. And then we're able to go back and really fix that with our players. And so I just think, to me, right, unless you can evaluate a lot of different pieces of your program, it's hard to Kaizen. And because it's subjective and you might feel like you're getting better, but if you can't prove it, it's hard to really own it and get your players to buy into it as well.
Yeah, I think you hit on some important things there too. This is, you do need to get yourself to the point where things are standardized. Like, this is the standard and this is how we're measuring against it, because the measurement against it will tell you yes or no. We're there, we're not. How do we get better at it, right? And even if you're hitting the standard, well, is there a way to improve it too? So I think that's important. Now, you mentioned you're looking at those things on the football side of it in practice. Is that all post-film valuation? You guys charting anything in practice that you're looking at too, live?
Practice, we're always charting turnovers and penalties. And so we run every day post-practice for turnovers and penalties. And then what we do is we try and do really, really well at the things that take no talent, right? And so that's a big thing for us. And so we call them TNT signs, right? And they're all around our stadium. So our stadium here at Gardner-Webb is kind of bowled down. You got to go down a big hill kind of all around the field to get onto the field. And so we've got 4 light poles, and on those light poles are TNT signs. And so as we're in the off season, right, if there is a standard, like you said, be behind the line, touch with your right hand, finish to communicate a certain way, and guys fall below a standard, right, then they go touch the TNT sign. And so it's kind of an instant feedback of, all right, fell short, kind of buzz the electric fence, right? You get shocked and go touch it, come back and get back to work. For us, that's been a really good reminder. I mean, even in the season, guys will kind of fall into those old habits, right? And you catch somebody on the line, and the second you blow that whistle, they just know and they take off up the field, right, to go touch a sign. Same thing with penalties and turnovers, right? If you're a guy and you jump off sides on defense, then nobody's got to say a darn thing to you. You're running up the field to touch the TNT sign. If you're a quarterback and you throw a pick, then everybody knows where to find you. Run it up the hill. And so it's not a degrading thing. It's not trying to point somebody out and say, man, how could you? You know, we don't have to rip and make a guy about what just happened, but they know that there's repercussions to performance and there's a standard that we're all held accountable. And when we don't meet that standard, there's a repercussion. And so they go touch the TNC, they come back down, they get to collect their thoughts, and then we coach them as well as we can. We get them back in to do their job. And so that's kind of where we look at it from a football perspective.
I might have missed it. What's the TNT stand for?
Takes no talent. So we want to be great at holding open doors, saying please and thank you, right? Flushing the toilets, cleaning my locker, making sure I have my homework turned in on time, just things that make you a good human. And sometimes, I mean, look, college football is crazy, but at the end of the day, we get the privilege to coach and teach and do life with 18 to 22-year-old men. And so the opportunity to influence them in a positive way in more than just football is one that I relish. And I want to make sure that we're doing right by them and their families, that we're continuing to instill the values that their families worked hard to put in them already. And we're just holding that standard while they're with us and hopefully helping them walk out of the program better husbands, fathers, mentors, and just versions of themselves.
Love it. I love that idea of instant accountability. I just caught this last week watching the championships in Division II. Anderson, 14-0 coming into the game, just faced an Avon team that's been amazing the last 2 years. I mean, but Anderson is extremely good, made a heck of a game of it. But if you're watching them jump off sides, you see a guy go down to the ground, do 2 push-ups right there in the game. And the first time I saw it, I think, like, what happened with that? I saw it again. Unfortunately, they had a little too many of those, but 2 push-ups, instant accountability. You could it's part of their culture that they value that, right? They value being accountable for what they did, and just a reminder of not going out and doing it again.
No doubt. No, I think anytime you get that instant feedback, you can correct the issue. And we use another kind of way that we use it is our edge grades each week. When you come into our team meeting room, we have team meetings on Wednesday, and the highest edge grades are the guys that get the chance to sit in the front of the room. And so you walk into the team room, all the chairs have names on it, right? And so those names move based on the edge grade. And so when you walk into that room, you've got a clear picture of, all right, I'm holding the line, right? I'm a standard bearer. I'm a culture driver. I'm sitting in the front row, right? I've earned that right to do that. And I've got to make sure I continue. Or if I'm in the back row and now I've got to take inventory and I've got to own it, right? What do I need to do to get up in the front? And if I'm there again next week, then I realize that I've got to make some real habit changes, right? Or real skill changes to make sure I can put myself in the best position to have the success that I want to have on and off the field. And so I just think the more and more that guys have an awareness of, am I meeting the standard or not? And again, it's not in a negative way, right? You don't want someone to feel less than, but you want them to know where they're at, and you want them to be able to make the necessary amendments for them to get on the right path.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's take it to the X's and O's and the scheme and the things related to the story last week when I was at BW. That one of the things I was really proud of is that as we implemented this type of mentality, that we got players, my first year felt and really selfish receiver room, everybody worrying about themselves and not taking care of their teammates. And just, it wasn't a good group. We had to fix that. And we did, and just really got into that idea of continuous improvement and being good teammates and helping each other improve. And that improvement became everybody's responsibility. So you're switching each other up. But what we really opened ourselves up to, and I love this, is they would come to us with ideas too of how we could improve. So we had updated some of the procedures we were running. That was my first year I took over as offensive coordinator. And we had different things we did. And I could think of it in particular, it was our game up against Otterbein. We got into a sequence where if we like what we were running and we hit with it, we could go again. And we hadn't been clear on our again procedures at that time of running it again. So they would get in, if there was a motion, they'd run the motion again. Well, our guy who was doing all his motions said, "Coach, what if when we're doing this and we go again, that we just get up on the ball where we ended up?" I'm like, perfect. That's actually the smartest thing we could do because we're trying to rip this off quick. So we get back stuff like that. We get back feedback on some of our concepts. In any concept, you run into the threat, especially if the quarterback falls in love with a part of it, of some dead routes that just aren't coming into his vision. And I can distinct adjustments we made in particular to like our naked concept that made one of our routes that we were throwing wasn't getting into the vision the way we were running it, made an adjustment, and now that comes alive. So this opens itself up, especially if coaches take this seriously and just a top down. I mean, when you think of Kaizen, this is every direction, right? It's up, it's down, it's lateral. The guy's looking to make improvements, and that's where ideas come from. And it's not always that you need to adopt it, but I think when someone gives an idea or points out something that hey, maybe there's something here we can improve. It's kind of that red flag of, because he mentioned it, I better look into this. There might be an opportunity for us to get better. So what kinds of things have you seen, whether it's been across the coaching staff or with the interaction between players and coaches, that help you guys get better schematically or procedurally?
Yeah, I think you bring up some awesome points. I definitely will say ego gets in the way of a lot of good ideas. I think at times coaches can be too rigid in their schemes and in what they believe. And to me, a great scheme is one that fits your players and that your players believe in, and it puts them in the best possible position to succeed. And that's not the same every year. Heck, it's not the same every week, and as a coach, it's constantly taking inventory of what's the skill set of the guys we have, what's the mental capacity of the guys that we have, and how do we put them in the best position to get our best players in a matchup on their worst players and impose our will. And to me, it has to be a constant opportunity to change or to modify. And I think if you become too rigid in what you do, it's going to truly inhibit what you can achieve. And so, like, I'll give you an example. When I was the coordinator at High Dominican, I had in my office, I was in kind of one of the bigger offensive staff rooms that had a big old whiteboard in there. And so there was always an open door policy that if you had a play that you wanted us to run, you were at any point in time, you were able to come into that room and present your play. But if you're going to present your play, you had to be willing to be able to draw it up against the defense. You had to be able to talk about why you wanted to run the play, what were the issues to the play, right? What were the red flags or the things that we might have to fix, and have the answers already built in. And so I'd have guys all the time that come in, hey, I saw the Jets do this, and draw it up, talk through it. And it was a way for them to get to watch more football. It was a way for them to feel like they were a part of our strategy, of our plan, and it included them. And in my opinion, the more you ask for feedback and the more you make it a collective plan and a collective environment, the more ownership you're going to get from everybody. It's the same thing with coaches. If I, as a coordinator, as a head coach, say, this is what we're doing, and I'm not going to go into the why or the how, and I'm not going to get your opinion or your feedback, if you're a good coach, you're going to take your marching orders and go, but you're going to feel much less involved or included, and you're not going to feel like it's yours. And so for me, it's how do we build collaborative processes and schemes that make everybody feel like they can have total ownership into it, and there's alignment. And so when you walk out of the room, there's total alignment. We all talked about it. Everybody knows what their job is and they go do it. You mentioned creating alignment in rooms and within a team. You talked about being a good teammate, things like that. We use the word mudita. Mudita is an African word and means genuine joy for the success of someone else. And so, like, if you were to come watch us practice on the video board, there's a big old mudita up there on the board every single day. And sometimes we'll throw, like, if we're working a turnover circuit, it'll be like a Peanut Tillman, turnover peanut punch highlight video, or we kind of mix it up based on what we're doing. But largely, it's going to say mudita. And some days it'll say Kaizen. And so a constant reminder that we are all together. And certainly some of us are going to have more success maybe than other guys, but it's ultimately in an effort for us to win. And if we're all trying to Kaizen in an effort to win versus Kaizen in an effort to get ours, it's going to be a lot more fun of an endeavor. And so creating an inclusive environment where guys can have ownership in the process, we're going to let them have ownership. We'll modify, we'll tinker, we'll make it fun. And we will absolutely attack people on Saturday because we're all going to be rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. It brings you back to thinking about the book, Kaizen, and again, big business book, manufacturing. And within these companies, I mean, the author really at the time, and honestly, I've been out of the manufacturing and business, that kind of business side of it for a long time. But in the West, they would have a quality control department. Would look at, let's say, at a manufacturing company, we make these, someone down the line, long after the press is set up, parts are made, then somebody's looking and saying, good or bad. We're in this process because someone's not saying, well, quality's not my job, it's this other person. They're looking at the beginning. Did I set this up the right way? Is there any problem here? If there is, how do I get help for this? It's that ownership that there's quality all along the way, instead of saying, that's not really my job. That coach will look at it. He'll tell me what's right or wrong. Like, you have the ability to fix something up front before it becomes a problem, because those little issues certainly can turn into issues. And in football, that could be the difference between a win or a loss. So those things are important. And it really puts people at the heart of this. And I think in anything, we're in a great era right now. The technology we have available for us to see the game in different ways that we never could before, outstanding. But I don't think it will ever be as powerful as the people involved in the process being able to have that control and ownership of it all along the way to make it better.
Yeah, I agree. I think I pride myself on being the biggest trash picker upper in the building. I think just small things like that. You see something on the ground, you pick it up, even if it's just a small little, 3-hole punch, little thing that sometimes falls on the ground in the GA room, like pick it up, throw it out, and just continue to find ways to serve, right? I tell the quarterbacks all the time, right? We're running. You should be the one that goes and grabs water bottles and you're getting the guys water, right? They drink first. You're constantly trying to find ways to be servants. And I think when everybody's humble enough to be able to put others first, it's just such a fun environment to be a part of. And so that's, to me, like our locker room. I think that's such a pivotal piece to your program. How well do you keep your locker room? And we've got every single day, there's an assignment, right, for a position group, and they're in charge of the locker room. And every single guy has a way that his locker needs to look and the way that it needs to get set up. And the position group that cleans it certainly is the kind of the boss of the day, but just the small detail of doing that well. And there's repercussions for our team if they don't do that. And it's something where it feels like a small thing, but at the end of the day, you have all these small little things that add up into one big thing. And I think there's a quote, Brad Stevens, if you consider the consequences of not doing the little things well, you realize there are no little things. So just finding a way to make a big deal out of everything. And I think, like you mentioned, find ways to serve everybody around us. That's part of the reason I love the way that I've come up in coaching. I've been a small school coach, and you have to wear a ton of hats. And even though, hey, that's not my group, but coach, I got you. Hey, that's not my job, but I'll go pick that kid up if you need me to. Hey, can I help with this drill? Can I do that cut up for you? Can I do that? And I think when you have that type of mindset where it's not about you or what your role is, it's about, do you make the team better? Do you make the program better? And how can you serve the head coach that you work for? And how can you serve the other coaches and the players that are around you? And if you can do that, then you're going to add so much value to the building. And so I think just being humble about that, and that's where I love, I guess, my path is I've not been in a building where, you kind of have one job and that's all you have to do. And I love the ability to add value in a lot of different ways and just to be a part of the community of the building.
Yeah, just that idea. I can remember, I know exactly where the sign was and walking from one plant to the other in this factory. A big sign up there that said, quality is everybody's job. Right? Quality is everyone's job. I mean, our owner, the founder, would emphasize, you can't have "it's not my job" syndrome, right? That's a problem for everybody. Yeah, it doesn't mean wait for somebody else to pick up the slack, but things happen. You see things happen. Don't let it go. Whether it's that, like you said, that little hole punch on the floor, or something with your position. You see a teammate failing, and you see why. Like, speak up, own it. Be a part of it. And I think that's it. So to wrap it up, I think Kaizen gives you a blueprint. It's worth studying. I think you can find some articles. You don't have to go read the stick book that gets pretty detailed with manufacturing type things, but I think you can find a lot of articles about this written 1986, but certainly has application to what we're doing in football. But, thinking back to the beginning of it and your journey with this, what would you recommend? What's the way for any coach at any level, even if it's a position coach? How do you get started with this? What are the few things you focus on? Because I think you'll agree, once you get started with this, it just kind of snowballs.
I think you have to embrace it. I think with anything, you're going to get what you emphasize. I think a lot of time you have maybe a fleeting thought or a quote or something you talk to the guys about once, and, it's a good message for the day. To me, this is a mindset, this is a way of life, and you have to embrace your growth every single day. So like, I love, we'll walk off the practice field and guy have a bad day and, kind of walking off with him like, coach, I got a Kaizen. And so it's become a way of life for us where I've been. I think it's one of those things with any of the stuff that you do culture-wise, you have to talk about it every single day. And like, it has to be emboldened throughout what you do. Like, we give a Kaizen award academically, right? So who continuously improved and make a big deal of that. We're going to every day after practice and evaluation, right? There's going to be a Kaizen clip. And so it's going to be a clip from, if it's spring ball, Tuesday's practice, and it could have been the same guy. It could have been a guy at his group or a different guy, right? Where we coached it And on Wednesday in practice in meetings, and then on Thursday they did a better job of it. So we're going to have that clip on Friday as a Kaizen opportunity. And so you're trying to weave it into everything that you do, because if not, they're just ideas, and you have to be very intentional about making it a part of the fabric of what you do. And if you want it to be something that you value and hold accountable, you need to value it and hold it accountable. And you got to talk about it all the time, and then show examples of what is a good Kaizen and maybe what's not. And I think guys will start to understand as you unpack it in your head too, of how it can add value, just from the mindset of guys that all said and done, they're going to fail a bunch. I fail every day, and so if it sets you back and you don't learn from it, then it's a waste, and so use it for growth, use it for fuel, allow it to chase your success and be the best version of you.
Cris, I really appreciate the time. Always great to talk with you. Bringing it back, 2017. So we've been doing fun to watch your journey and your continuous improvement. So we really appreciate you and wish you the best of luck as you continue in your journey.
Thanks, Keith. Awesome to see you.
Thank you again for listening to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. If you want help applying Kaizen directly to your own program, unit, position group, or even your personal coaching process, we've built a tool to do exactly that. The Coach and Coordinator AI Kaizen Companion is designed to take the ideas from our Kaizen episodes and turn them into practical football-specific improvement systems. It walks you through diagnosing issues, identifying root causes, and building clear, repeatable processes using Kaizen principles like PDCA, standardization, and continuous improvement. Whether you're trying to clean up execution, improve communication, increase practice efficiency, or refine how you coach day to day, the Kaizen Companion helps you move from frustration to clear, actionable steps without blame, guesswork, or generic advice. You can access it today using the link in the description or by visiting coachandcoordinator.com.
So you want to start a business. You might think you need a team of people and fancy tech skills, but you don't. You just need GoDaddy Aero. I'm Walton Goggins, and as an actor, I'm an expert in looking like I know what I'm doing. GoDaddy Aero uses AI to create everything you need to grow a business. It'll make you a unique logo. It'll create a custom website. It'll write social posts for you and even set you up with a social media calendar. Get started at GoDaddy.com/Aero. That's GoDaddy.com/AIRO.